We're live, so we're perfectly here. Everyone's here. There's audio, there's video. Hopefully, Steve won't vanish like he did yesterday, which was great. And we're here joined by Darcy Oake. Darcy, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you guys?
We're doing well.
So I guess we weren't just chatting for like 10 minutes, right?
Yeah. We for a while. So that's right. I knew how he was doing. It's the illusion. But we always start the show asking like the same question to everybody, which is, how did you get into magic take over your life?
I'm sure you probably hear a variation of the same story for this. Every magician has a very similar one. Mine was like, my dad was playing around with a deck of cards one day. I think I was like 8, and he asked me to pick one. He was just like, he knows no magic. And so I picked one, looked at it, put it back in the deck, and he goes, watch, I'm going to find your card. He mixed them up, and he closes his eyes, and he literally reaches in randomly, pulls one out, flips it over, and it's mine. And I lost my mind. Like, I was like 8. I was like, how did you do that? I have no idea. And then I found out, like, he wouldn't tell me. He just tortured me. And I found out a month later it was a complete accident. It was a fluke. It's crazy to think about. Like, if it didn't actually work out, what if I, like, got bit by the bug, you know? It was pretty cool.
Fluke are very good. I remember a couple of years ago I was performing for my dad just randomly, and I was messing around and did an any card, any number with no method. I was just like, just name a card, name a number, count to it, and it hit. And he was like, oh, that's really good. And I was like running around the place being like, what? That's not possible. That's not possible.
Everyone, why didn't you film it? Why didn't you film it?
Yeah, that every so often when that happens, I can never play it cool, ever. I always lose. I'm like, I could have been so much suaver with that.
Yeah, definitely.
It's hard to play it off as cool, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I had it happen before as well in the middle of a trick where it's meant to be magician goes wrong type trick, and it went right. I was like, oh, just turn over the top card. Is that you? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, the rest of the trick is actually pretty good, but yeah, sure. Miracle. Thanks so much.
That's hilarious.
We had it happen there just recently. We had Taylor Drescher on from the States, and we were just doing the old hold up a card. What card are we thinking? And she was like, oh, guys, maybe we can do it now. We were talking about how the podcast came about, that we were doing that for hours, and we're like, this is too boring. We need to get better people on the podcast and everything else. So she picked up a card. And I was like, Dave is the mentalist, he'll read your mind. But I was like, it's probably the 4 of clubs or something. And she was like, no way. That was perfect moments.
Yeah. There was one. I was at some party one time, and this guy had a pack of those like little cigars, like that are about the size of a cigarette. And I was like, yeah, here, pass me one. And he gives me one. And I went, watch this. And I literally just chucked it as high in the air as I could, and it went boom, and landed right in my mouth, which like I wouldn't be able to do if I practiced it a million times. And like, this is one of my biggest regrets, is that I was like, and then I just took off. I could have just been like, yeah, but I
yeah, definitely. It is that trying to stifle the reaction, and then like the card trick is how you started, and like that your dad did, or the card miracle because it wasn't a trick.
Yeah.
When did you decide to go into like the illusion stage and doves and all that sort of stuff?
That was sort of like always kind of what like really intrigued me. So watching like the old Siegfried and Roy specials, the Copperfield specials, and then I used to send away to the SAM video library, and they would mail you boxes of like VHS tapes, and I'd dub them over and then mail the VHS tapes back to the SAM library. And then on those were a like bunch of different guys doing doves. Like and there were like videos of like the FISM contests from like '76 and stuff like that. So I was like rewinding those tapes over and over and over. And then I just like was fascinated by the bird guys. And so it was kind of like that combo. So I begged my parents when I was a kid to like get a dove, and they eventually let me get one, and I started working with that, and then kind of just added another one, and then before they knew it, I had like 10 doves in the house. They were like furious. We're like a farm, and and then I was always like captivated by the illusions and stuff, and that's like, you know, as you guys know, it can be expensive and stuff. So I would do, you know, kids parties or whatever shows I could, save up for a big trick, and then kind of just sort of when it came to the illusions, like added them slowly, like one at a time, and you know. I heard early on, I can't remember who said it, but it was like, if you're gonna do illusions, try to add one a year, because like they're expensive. You got to work them. It's not just like you get this thing and it works. So it's
yeah. We had Ali Cook on. We had Ali Cook on there recently, and he was saying that he was like, it starts with a small trick, and then you're like, I can go bigger. Even though I might not do illusions, I need to buy them all. I need to have the whole on. They need to be ready just in case, you know.
Exactly.
It's drug that way, that it becomes this thing that just becomes, you have to go bigger.
Yeah, totally. And then I think too, like after a while too, when you sort of have been in like like, I find it beneficial to have well, there's certain guys that knock it out of the park when they build stuff. But I find, like, especially if you're having something like unique or custom, it's like your idea that you're having created. It's almost better to like do it in bits and not like give one builder this whole idea and then be like, build this, because then it never quite ends up being exactly what you need. Not that they built it wrong, but it's like the more hands-on you can be with like learning the props in and out and the little things. It's like I always find that like if it breaks, then you can fix it, or if you can. You know, like there's nothing worse than when something goes wrong, you have no idea how to repair the whatever thing in the prop that's like, you know, those things always frighten me. It's like I want to know exactly what happens within it. If it goes, because, you know, stuff happens, it can go wrong, and it will at some point. So
yeah, well, can go wrong, will go wrong for sure, and you can't just duct tape it, you know, for the best.
Exactly.
It's like a load of magicians.
Some temporary fixes quickly become permanent solutions.
Exactly.
Yeah. There are some magicians who do the whole thing of like, people like, how did you do that? And like, I don't know how any of this works. Yeah. I think that's very true with a lot of illusionists. They're just like, it just works. That's the way it was built. And that's what.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
that's definitely. I do think it's good as well for people to think of the one at a time rather than thinking, oh, I want to get into illusions. I need an hour-long show, so I need to like have 250 grand. And
that's the thing too. It's like the most expensive stuff is usually the least amount of time on stage. You know, it's like however much this thing cost. Like just because it was expensive, also doesn't mean that you're gonna get even 5 minutes out of it. So that's kind of a weird conundrum to be like, well, yeah, it's cool, but it's like a minute and a half and it's X amount of dollars. I don't know. Like I've made some stupid purchases in my day. Why would I have bought that? Like, but
I used to love watching Copperfield with that. You know, the illusions were great, and obviously he needed time to set up the next one and the, you know, stage and everything else. But it was the tricks and the effects in between, like the vanishing egg and all those ones. Yeah. You know, they're effects that cost, you know, little to nothing, bar the big massive illusion that's about to happen. But sometimes you get more reaction for a close-up piece of magic, you know, as you know yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's usually ends up being the most time in the show. And I think also like what was so good about him, I think, is that it was such a perfect balance. It was like there was enough of both and there wasn't too much of either. You know, it wasn't like, oh, he's rambling on now. It was like everything was so like dialed in that like you were engaged by whether it's like a $5 thumb tip trick or whatever, which then leads into like $100,000 illusion. They're both like equally as like captivating.
Yeah,
definitely.
That's really nice and also quite like soul crushing. When you're like, I've got this 100,000 grand illusion that is just as good as a bill switch with a thumb tip.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, it's a weird thing. I always find it's like a hard thing to wrap my head around because they do both serve like a different purpose in the show, right? Which is like, so yeah, but it's hard not to think of it that way. When you're like, oh, this thing was $5 and this was whatever, and it's like, and then I can ship this everywhere. No one cares. Like, why wouldn't I just, you know? But
I think we're all guilty of that, though. You know, you buy an effect, you bring it to a performance, and then you've worked it for a while, and then you bring it and you put it into the show, or you put it into your close-up set or whatever. And then you do it, and then you think the reaction is going to be huge, but it might only be like a kind of a trickly kind of reaction from the audience because you haven't put it in the work that you have if it was normally your set. And then something that you do all the time gets a massive reaction because it's more homed in, it's more you, and it doesn't feel as new. So it takes a while. Like if you were working on an illusion, how long are you working on one before it goes into the live act?
It depends. Like it depends what it is and what, like, I guess sort of the method is and who it kind of relies on. So if it's like black art, then obviously we can rehearse it, but it's never going to be until you're in the situation or whatever. And the thing I always find with like any illusion is like every single time it's like the difference between it feeling 100% ready in rehearsal and then the first time you do it on stage, it's like you're never even remotely prepared for like you think you've checked every box, but something happens all the time. Like, oh, I didn't think of that. So you never do until you have it on stage. So there's like this weird threshold I find that like you just sort of have to submit at one point and be like, okay, we've rehearsed this as much as we can, but we're gonna learn a shitload the first time we do it. It's not gonna be, you know. But and it's weird because like there's been times where I've been like, no, we've literally checked off every box. What could possibly happen that we haven't prepared for? And then it's something like, oh, the caster jammed up or the whatever, you know what I mean? Like little things like that you're like have to be prepared for that you don't know until they happen. So it's different though for everything. But like if it's something that relies on like an assistant to pull off, you know, that usually depends on how long they're willing to work on it before we kind of do it. Because it's a lot of like, if it's an assistant too, it's a lot of like, hey, get in here, and it's really uncomfortable for a while. And like after a while, they don't really want. They're like, okay, yeah, I know, I get in here, and then I get, you know. So it's hard to kind of balance that. Because for us, we just do it for like all day, the whole day, until they say, no more. So
it's true.
Yeah,
it's easier to be the guy who's just like pointing at the box rather than having.
I've tried to start doing things that like I actually like rely on me doing stuff. Like I hate seeing an illusion where it's like that guy didn't do anything. The girl did it, and the lighting guy, and the whatever, you know. So it's like more stuff. Like, yeah.
Yeah, so we were said that we were talking to Dan Sparry there recently, and he was saying the same thing, that, you know, you can work on your sleight of hand at a mirror or, you know, with your team or with close friends or whatever, and you can work on, but there's no way really to work an illusion. It has to happen live on stage. That's the only place you can really rehearse it.
Yeah, exactly. And like, and you can get it as close to or what you think is show ready in rehearsal, but yeah, it's like once you have it out there, it's totally different. And when the audience is there, like you can't feel the, you know, like have you ever had it where like you've rehearsed something or you're practicing something and then you're literally performing it for the first time in front of somebody, like, oh, this is like the timing's off, or it's like feels weird, it's like clunky or whatever, and it's like you can't learn that until it's in front of an audience. And like I was working on any card at any number, and like the first like 3 times I did it on someone, I was like, okay, these are decent reactions, and then I started like messing with the pattern. It just like stopped really getting a pop at all, and I was like, wait, what happened here? What did I change? Why is it like just little things like that you don't know until you work a bit over and over, really.
Yeah. When you're putting like a new illusion into your show, do you try to always like put it somewhere in the middle where you know you've got stuff before and after it that you know like the back of your hand, so that if it isn't as smooth as you'd like, it's kind of like you have stuff?
Sometimes it depends. I don't know. Usually, because sometimes it's like it's a specific thing. Because I always try to find like I never really like in shows where it's like 5 routines in a row that are audience participation or something. So it depends what the bit is. So if it's sometimes it has to go in a certain place. So it's not like, okay, give him a round of applause. Okay, now I need another volunteer. You know, it's that type of thing. But yeah, I try to sort of wedge like what I would think would be a material around it, just in case it's. But I also try to like introduce it in sort of steps too. Like instead of like introduce it in the middle of another routine or something. So if it just doesn't go anywhere, you can just carry on, you know.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I think if it's like an illusion, because you're like banking on that, you know.
Yeah. I think when people think Britain's Got Talent and they think magicians, they really think of your act. And I mean, I've asked kind of lay people, and I was telling them that you'd be on the show this week, and they were like, "Oh, the guy with the doves." So I mean, it's very much a kind of staple in people's mindset, you know. Did you know you were going to do that act when you went on the show, or were you jumping through?
Sorry, I just gonna adjust it. Yeah. So what happened? So I did Le Plus Grand Cabaret du Monde or whatever with my bird act, and then that was just like on our YouTube channel. And then they saw it. They reached out and they were like, "Come do Britain's Got Talent." And I was kind of like, I don't know. It was before like people were doing it a lot, right? So I was kind of, I don't know. Like you might just like put like clown music underneath the act, and I don't know. So I said no, and I was like, I don't want it. And then like a month later, the guy called me again, and he was like, and they had said nothing about like what material they wanted. They were just like, come do it. And I just assumed I was getting that like cattle call that they send out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
No. Then somebody else, I think it was like a higher up person or whatever, phoned me and was like, hey, like, to just be fully transparent, like, we really like your dove act. We think you should do your dove act on the show. And I was like, yeah. And from my perspective, like, I was working on the cruise ships at the time. So I was like, I don't want to get like if I go on there and they hit the X and then I can't work the ships, you know what I mean? Because I've been X'd off some show or whatever. So like, she was like, the woman was like, listen, like, we're not like, she's like, just from my experience on the show, if you do the bird act, like, I think it will do well. She's like, obviously I can't make any promises, but like over in the UK, we haven't really seen like a bird act like that before. And she's like, just my gut says it would go well for you. We're not trying to like trick you into like, making you look bad. She's like, this is genuinely something we'd like, and we think it would do well in the show. And I was like, all right, yes, okay, I'll do it then. So, and the one thing I did say was, I was like, can we not, like, can I not be like waiting in a line with like a kennel of birds and like, you know what I mean? Where it's like that thing, like, can I just come and just do it? And she was like, let me see what I can do, whatever. And then I thought after that call, I was like, actually, you know what? I'm going to pin all of this on the fact that it's live animals. So I was like, I need to know like exactly the time that I'm going to perform it. And you have to give me like 15 minutes. I got to prepare these birds. So I can't be like in a line. Like, so I sort of played that, like, to just try to not play. It's intimidating. Like then the Xing off of people, like it shakes the building. And I'm just like, oh my God, like this is intense. And I think what really helped too was in that, like, I asked because I had borrowed birds from someone in London or in Manchester, so I brought the parakeets with me, but I borrowed doves because that was the whole thing. And so I was like, can I possibly rehearse once on the stage in the situation, just because these are someone else's doves, and like, and the guy was like, yeah, we can make that happen. So he's like, yeah, here, do you want to go rehearse your act? And I was like, for sure. And the runner guy had told me, he was like, oh, they're probably gonna ask you if you want to rehearse in about 10 minutes. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna load, and if I have to unload, fine, but I just want to be ready. So the guy was like, hey, do you want to rehearse? And I was like, yes, and I was already loaded up. So the production staff had no idea I was ready to go, and so I started banging out this bird act while they're just like going through notes, and they were like, what is this that's happening? They saw rehearsals and were like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then I think I sort of got them on side, and then it was like, I think they were excited, like stuff that they get excited about. They want to see it do well. Like they're not, so it was that, like, and I didn't realize what was happening at the time either. I didn't realize this until like a year later when I looked back at all of this, and I was like, oh yeah, actually they would have seen the rehearsal, because I remember them, sort of like, be like, what, how is this guy just whipping out birds? Like what? And then them being excited about it. And then they let me, how did it work? I was like, I need like 10 or 15 minutes each time I'm going to do it, obviously. And then they let me sort of like, they were like, if you want to go prepare now, you tell us when you're ready, and we'll get you in front of the judges. So I was like, perfect. So there was like no, it was cool. Like they were so good about it. Like, yeah.
I remember I was at Backstage at Ireland's Got Talent, and it was like the open call audition day, and there was a guy there with a singing parrot, and he was there for like 10 hours waiting to audition, and every now and then he had to just like spray the parrot to keep it from overheating inside this big hall, and like it flew away a few times. He'd go chasing after it. It's like, just let him go through. Like, he can go ahead of me. Like, it's like,
yeah, exactly. But that was really like a life changing for me. I had no idea what to do. I was literally just like, I'm working on the ships. It's not really artistically satisfying. And I was like, oh, maybe like BGT's got a big online following and viewership. I was like, sure, yeah, let's try it. And then it was like, oh my God, the fact that I said no to this for like a month, like what was I thinking? Like, but yeah.
It's one of those things. I think we've all kind of gotten the call and stuff like that. I mean, I got the call one year, and they wanted to know exactly the act. They wanted to, nearly. It was almost like fool us. It was like, you have to tell us so we know how you did it. And I was a little bit taken. I'm primarily an escape artist, a magician and an escape artist. So this year I got a call from them, and I talked to Dave about it, and we were talking. And I said I'd only do it if they let me do something, outside, and the judges had to be outside with me and all that. and never got back to me. So I think if you don't want to do it, I think if you circle around that kind of, well, I can only do it if it's a Thursday, and But there is one thing that I wanted to do on the show, so maybe in the future I might do it. Then we'll see.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, it's definitely like the platform is like, it is a massive viewership, and it's what I think is really cool about it too is it's like, personally I feel like there's people that are way better magicians than I am, you know what I mean, like technical skill wise and stuff like that are like do stuff that I was like, man, I don't have the chops to pull that off or whatever. But what's nice about a show like that is that it sort of introduces, the public to like the person kind of thing, which is what they want on that show. They want to, here's an ordinary person, they know your story and who does something that's hopefully extremely impressive. And it's sort of like it promotes like the individual and like what their craft is kind of at the same time, which I think is good. And
I think the audience gets to know kind of a bit more who you are, more just a performer. Yeah, exactly. So no, it's crazy. I mean, there's like however many there's a Got Talent in every country, and the champions and the whole. It's a successful format for sure.
What was the champions like compared to like the normal Britain's Got Talent going back on the champions? Was it a lot different?
No, well, what's funny is I was like, because BGT was such a like life-changing experience, I was like, oh, nice, we can go back and sort of relive this kind of like that journey, but enjoy it this time, because it's like, and then you get there and you're like, this is exactly the same. It's like you're stressed and anxiety ridden. It's like, I can't enjoy this. There's so much pressure, but you do. I mean, obviously we enjoy what we do, but. I just told myself going back, I was like, oh, this is great, because it's like I know what it's like, so I can be, mentally prepared. And then you get there, and it's like it's so difficult to mentally prepare for an environment like that, where you're just the most vulnerable position you can ever be as an artist. Like, here's my art, and then now here, you four, tell me what you think about it in front of everyone. It's like,
Yeah, it's true.
And being America's, like the champions of the America's Got Talent compared to the Britain's Got Talent, did you find that they work differently behind the scenes and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's because for me it all happened on the BGT side of things. So when I went to do AGT, I didn't have like the relationships with any of the like producers or runners. Like so when I went back to do BGT, it was like everyone from the time I did it before. It was like so good to see everyone, and you're like, this is crazy. AGT, I felt a little bit more like sort of like lone wolf. I was like, I didn't go through this platform, but that was the first one to do the champions. So I don't think they knew if there was going to be a spin-off in other territories of the champions version. So at the time we were like, oh, well, this is going to be the champions version. Let's do it. And so it was good. I mean, we got the video clip and whatever. And yeah, but I wasn't like, I was trying to work the UK market, right? So
yeah,
it was good for the promo and the outreach and everything.
And was it around the same time then that you did that? You borrowed your book. You had a book then after that, wasn't it?
No, that was before. So the book was actually shortly after Britain's Got Talent. So I think the book came out in 2016. It was.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's good. We actually got a question in beforehand, which was from Dan. When do you think it's a good idea to audition on a TV talent show? I guess like in the career, because you've seen a lot of people where like before you went on, a lot of amateur magicians were going on with not much experience, and then you were one of the first to actually go all the way to the final, and then now a lot more professional magicians are going on. So when do you think is a good like point to go on?
I think so for me, when I did BGT, it was like, because I was working the ships and I had those three, like, so the dubs was like the opening of my show. I was doing the décolleté chair in the middle, and then I was closing with the jaws. So I was like, okay, there's 3 rounds on BGT. I don't want to go on here and like do something that's an idea that you don't know the nuances of, that you don't know the ebbs and flows and the beats of it. It's like, you got to go on there with something that like, cold, and the beats, when it hits, I didn't want to go on and be like, here's an idea that I had this thing built, and please work. Yeah. So if it's 3 rounds, I'll do the beginning, middle, and end of like the current show. And I think, I think that was like, I mean, I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I'd like to say like, oh yeah, this is all like, but at the time you get that column there, you're like, what am I going to do? So it wasn't necessarily as methodically planned as I'm making it out to seem, but that's sort of how it ended up happening. Was like, getting stressed, I think, about like trying to come up with ideas and like, what are we going to do? And it's like, well, let's actually just take what we already have and build on that or do a version of that. So I think like the best time, like I don't like, because you see people who can like go on there and they can get like 1 million views, but they don't have a show or they don't have anything to maybe sell. I think you have to sort of cut your teeth and have the bones of it, you know, not the bit, but like, you know, if you come up with the world's greatest act and you go on there and you audition, it's like, great, you're through to the next one, and then you got nothing. It's like, you know, I think you kind of have to have the basis of almost a show, really, and then take the best bits and audition with that kind of thing.
Yeah, because I think it's important as well to take advantage of after it. You know, once the show's aired, like people's attention spans are short. Like if you're not doing shows around the area within a few months, will people remember?
And so shortly after BGT, I was like had meetings and whatever, and it was pretty wild. And one guy told me from CAA, the agency, he told me he was like, it's like literally down to a mathematical equation or a science. He's like, any of the like biggest hitting acts from that season can work off of that for about 2 years. And then he's like, after 2 years, there's already been 2 more seasons. Someone else is to it. So you can basically milk your appearance for about 2 years. And he was like, you gotta keep it going. You know what I mean? You can't hang your hat on, you know, the Got Talent thing for your whole career. It's like that. Everything's a stepping stone, and you can get 2 solid. This is what he was saying. He was like, you can get 2 solid years of work from your appearance on the Got Talent thing or whatever. But after that, you gotta find the next thing. So. Yeah,
that's true. There's only a small window for any kind of a TV appearance, even if you're promoting a show or something. You know, if you aren't on it straight away, you kind of lost. And I think it's one of those things as well where if you're looking for publicity for the sake of publicity, you never get proper publicity. If you've got something to sell or you've got a pitch, I think journalists and PR companies and things they can see through that stuff where you just want an article for the sake of it, you know, and there's no story there. There's no meat to the story.
Oh, that's exactly it. Yeah, it's not like, you can't just be like, hey, I'll come on your show and do a trick. And I'm like, well, what are you promoting? Myself? No. Like you have to have a show or a product or whatever. And that's the thing. I think a lot of people try to get on those, you know, late night shows or talk shows or whatever. But if you don't have something to promote, you have to have something to promote. Yeah. And even if you didn't have something to promote, it's almost a wasted opportunity to go on and do it because it's like, well, you're not selling. Like, you might get a few extra followers, maybe, but it's, you know what I mean? It's not as the biggest thing, you know, to capitalize on it. You got to be there we're basically salesmen, you know what I mean? Like,
it's like an actor. An actor doesn't go on a late show in the US when he doesn't have a movie coming out or a new TV show or something. They're not just like, just here because I said I'd come along.
Yeah, just say hi.
Just popped in to say hi. Nothing to promote. Yeah, just hanging out.
Talking about promoting things, Darcy, you've got a virtual show coming in. This is a nice segue.
No, I'm excited about it. At first I was like, I don't know if you guys were the same way, but when everything sort of like kicked off, I was kind of like, I don't know, the virtual things. Like I've always been a live performer or whatever, and I was like, I don't know. And then, you know, the more time that goes by, it's like, actually, you know what? There is something interesting about this dynamic because it is kind of like, the way I'm trying to look at it is it's like sort of like watching a TV magic show that you're involved in. You know what I mean? I feel like I've watched a lot of Zoom shows that are just a guy on Zoom doing stuff, but I think like there's a opportunity to do something that's like a little bit more kind of like, because, you know, I mean, with the way TV magic's gone for a while, people are skeptical and they're suspect. So I feel like it's kind of a way to maybe do a TV style magic show that people are involved in and you can see them.
Absolutely, yeah. I was at the Pendulum Summit here in Ireland in January before all the madness, and Bear Grylls was there, and he was talking about all the way that he's got that show that you kind of decide where does he go left or does he go right. Or, that's a cool kind of concept. You know, you could almost have like a, I don't know, like could be like a magic menu type thing where you're like, should I do this effect or this, you know, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different
you can make it way more interactive because I think what's kind of turning off professional magicians from it is because everyone's just thinking that it just has to be a small production, but it can be still a big production even though it's a Zoom show.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's like, it lends itself to like us as magicians can explore different methods and different things that we otherwise might not be able to do, right? So we can also use this to our advantage to do some really cool stuff. And I wasn't really looking at it like that before. I was like, oh, I just have to do my show over Zoom. And then it's like, oh, wait. It's like, actually, if we, they only see like right here, there's so much we can, so it's cool. It's exciting. And it's neat. I mean, it's also rare that we get a chance to dive into a totally new like medium. We're either, on stage or doing close-up, or it's like an interview or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a handful of like platforms for us that like we perform across, and now it's like here's a new one. It's kind of like, oh, this is exciting.
I think it's definitely something that everyone is going to kind of like you said, like you're going to dip into it either in a podcast or you're going to interview piece where you can do like one piece, or you can put together like a show. So is the show going to be more like close-up magic in that sense, like parlor style magic, or are you going to throw in some stage effects?
Yeah, so that's the plan, because the other thing too with what we were talking about before is like obviously an illusion show it's expensive to put on and put around. You got to get the gear there, and there's crew, and it's not just like you can't just like rock up with 5 illusions yourself, and you know what I mean. It's so
shoving them in the door.
Yeah, and in that note, then you have to charge a higher price because there's more expenses. So it just becomes so now it's like, actually, well, why don't we do that? But it's not costing us anything to ship it anywhere, because here I have a warehouse space that's sort of set up like a studio rehearsal kind of thing where I keep my stuff and rehearse and everything. So it's like, well, we've got the show just sitting there, so why don't we combine it and do that type of thing? Like, so we'll do some bigger illusion bits and then intersplice it with the interactive stuff. And we're working on the closer of it, which I'm like pretty excited. I think it's gonna work out. We're still like, you know what I mean? It's one of those ones where it's like, oh, in theory this should work.
Yeah. I love those in theory ones where you're like,
yeah, exactly.
Sometimes you come up with one of those in theory ones and you go, I'll try it, and the person goes, well, that wasn't even a trick, you just did this. You're like, didn't fool you, thanks so much, back to the show.
Failed me.
Thinking back to what Steve was saying about the way like they could do stuff like the Bear Grylls where it's magic with choices, my immediate mind just went straight to like, okay, so you've 4 options, pick one, and they go A, like cool, A is eliminated, pick another one. Go with B.
Which one do you want to take out?
Chop companies.
Have you seen Bandersnatch on Netflix?
No, I haven't seen it.
So it's like Black Mirror, the TV show.
Yeah.
So it's like a special of Black Mirror, and it's a choose your own adventure, and it's insane. It's so crazy. It's like the scene stops, and it's like, do you want him to do this or do this? And it's like, it's crazy.
That's so
and
cool.
I googled it after. Apparently, there's like 100 different ways it can go or something. It's nuts. You should check it out.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds good.
That would definitely be a cool way to bring it. When you're talking about like shipping illusions and stuff, not having to do that with the show, do you find it difficult? Like, are all theaters able to set up to be able to bring your illusions on and off stage, or have there been times that like you've had trouble trying to get something on stage?
And that's the other thing too, and especially like I guess with where I'm at in my career as well is like in some towns it's like, well, we'll book the smaller theater or whatever, right? So but then when you're sort of like booking the venues that way, or like the show kind of has to be modular in the sense where it's like, all right, when we get to whatever, it's like we're gonna have to scrap the whatever bit and whatever bit because it's not gonna fit in the. And then the backstage space is another thing. So it's like there's a lot of variables that come with the larger illusions. They do have like they still fascinate me, and like I love watching them, but it's like it's a lot for what inevitably ends up being a minute and a half, 2 minutes, So.
I'm so glad I do mentalism. Like a pad of paper can always fit on a stage, no matter where I have to go.
Yeah, exactly.
I had to bring 5 chairs with me for a chair test before, and that was a pain in the ass.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm envious.
But yeah, for people who want to like go to the virtual show that you're doing, where can they get tickets and all that sort of stuff?
If you go to my website, so darcyoake.com/virtual. And then, so I was saying, can you interact with people who are online now, or how's that working for you guys?
Yeah, there's a couple of people there at the moment. But yeah, we can.
Oh, whatever. Yeah, no, I was just thinking if you wanted to give away a ticket on, or you could do it later or whatever. Or,
Yeah. We can
Yeah,
go
we
up
can
with
do it.
something. If people watching will give away a ticket to someone who's watching, we'll set a date. So if we say by Wednesday, because that's a date. So if you want to ask a question, and we'll have people write that in the comments, and then we'll pick out.
Oh, whoever gets the answer gets the ticket. Good. Ooh, should it be like a magic knowledge question?
I think that could be fun. See how good people are.
What I got? Who? Okay. All right. Here's an easy one. Who wrote? Well, I guess you could just Google these answers. It doesn't matter.
That shows they put in effort,
Yeah, exactly. So, who is the author of Technique and Understanding?
Oh,
Good question.
I'll have to go Google it.
It's on my shelf, so I was like, oh, okay. There you go.
Well, at least if they're not a magician, at least we know they can use Google. So that's that's half.
Yeah.
That's most online magicians these days. All they can use is Google.
Yeah.
They should be able to sign in to the virtual show then, because you don't want any emails being like, I can't access the show. It's not working.
Yeah.
Can't get the camera on.
What was I know magicians get this question kind of a lot, but if you got stopped, obviously you've been on TV and people know you from Britain's Got Talent and America's Got Talent. So if you get stopped by someone and you're just running out to get something at the store or a cup of coffee or whatever, what trick will you do, or do you always have something ready to go?
Yeah, so I have one in my wallet, which is basically it's a variation on multiple things. On oh my god, I'm drawing a blank. Colossal Killer.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
The variation on that, which is basically like if they're like do a trick, and most of the time I'll be like, not like or whatever. Like I try not to just immediately submit to their requests, But if I'm like, okay, I'll do one. It's usually I'll just be like, here, think of a card, and I'll take out my wallet and I'll be like, what card are you thinking of? And then show it. That's it. So it's direct. It's like a 30-second thing where if someone's like, do a trick, I'm like, okay, think of a card. And it's like, boom, it's in my wallet. The end.
Perfect.
And then it's cool too, because it usually leaves it where it's like conversation over. You know what I mean? It's like if someone's like, do a trick, and I'm like, okay, fine. Boom, there you go. I'm out.
Yeah. They're reacting, and you're doing the David Blaine. You're just walking away as quick as possible.
Yeah, I mean, usually the people who are pestering you to do a trick are the ones you maybe don't want to be doing it. You know what I mean? It's like you can tell when someone really wants to see a trick, and then you can tell if someone's like, "Oh, you're a magician. Do a trick. You're like, But yeah. What about you? What's your go-to?
Usually ring thing or something like that, kind of quick. But I kind of play off the thing that I'm an escape artist. So do you have any chains or handcuffs or anything? No, you don't. Okay, cool. I'm off. So I play around that. But yeah, like ring thing or like a quick, something quick, maybe, or even just a coin vanish or something. Simple. Yeah. But if you get to the store or anything, you always have to have something.
I always go with like either something like a witch hand with a ring or a coin or something, or like a 5-object equivocate. I find pretty easy to go to. Yeah. And now there's so many apps as well. I'm just like, digital force bag. There we go. Job done.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was doing inject for a while. That was one of my go-tos.
Yeah. It's
but there's been I've had a few brutal failures with inject. Like strictly because of it's tech and whatever. Yeah. Like, oh god. But
there is no signal or Wi-Fi in what I found in pretty much every hotel ballroom or like drinks reception area. You go, I have no signal. Anyway, moving on.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was on after a mentalist years ago. I won't mention his name because it's not fair. But he put down a gimmick that he had set up in an iPad, and the MC had the same iPad, and they switched pads. So he was left there. He was left there on stage, just going, "You're thinking of a tree? You're not thinking of a tree. Okay. You're thinking of a flower. You're not thinking of a flower. Okay." And it was just a disaster.
Oh, I heard a story about it. Might have been a similar, or I can't remember the one, whatever the gimmick is, but yeah, there were 2 magicians had the same one, and one of them was like, he told me he did this himself, and he was doing some mind reading thing on this group of girls, And because they had the same gimmick, I guess he sunk his up with his or whatever. So when the girl was drawing something, he just drew like a big schwanz, right? So the guy's going to read these girls' minds like, so, oh, you're like a bit naughty. This is like a little bit naughty. But then she's like, what? And he's like, so you're thinking of, it's like the male genitalia. And she was like, no, I drew a house. And he was like, oh.
That's amazing.
I was doing before at a like the college graduation party for the medicine degree in the college in Cork, and I went to do a drawing duplication and was like, draw anything you want, and immediately it was a penis, and it was like a group of like female graduation doctors. And you're just like, it's good to see that the sense of humor is still there.
It's like the only thing they studied for the last 5-6 years, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
They went straight to anatomy.
So you jumped. Your career has kind of jumped around from like close-up magic to like the doves and the illusions and stuff. Do you still perform a lot of close-up magic in your set anyway?
I do like in the stage show. Like, well, when it was a live theater show, so we had like the screen and the camera for a few bits and stuff. Not for too much, because like I was saying before, like there's guys with close-up shots that would just put me to shame. But I know I got my go-tos, and I have my, you know, I can if I can do a walk-around gig for sure, but like it's not a comfort zone. I don't necessarily like. I love the stage theater performance, and like walk-around stuff has never really been my kind of like forte, if you will.
Yeah, there was a cool thing with that actually, like about being able to tell like what you can do close up. There's a video actually I watched it the other day on Jubilee. It's on YouTube, where they do a thing called Odd Man Out, where they get like 6 people and one of them isn't what the rest of them are. So they've done ones with like they're all people who claim to be psychic and one person isn't. And then they have done ones where people play guitar, one person isn't. But they did one with magicians. So I was watching it. So there was 6 people. One of them wasn't the magician. And the first round, they were like, do a trick. And you watch it and you're like, that's not a magician. Like just straight away. You just it's like they go to write the cards and you're like, nope. And then there was one guy who immediately, he just said, I'm really looking forward to this. It should be fun, and threw confetti in the air. And I was like, that's a magician. Because that's magic sense of humor. It's like just stands out in the crowd easily.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's crazy. Even when you try to like teach someone a trick, or like someone who's not a magician, just like in how they handle cards and stuff, you can tell immediately. It's like,
yeah,
you know, it's just like the handling of certain things is like, well, we see it all differently, I guess, right, than a normal person. Like cards.
I think we take for granted that we just know the foundations so well that it's just a second. You know, if you hand someone a deck of cards, you know straight away. If they start fumbling, you're like, okay, we need to start just a shuffling. You know,
exactly. Yeah. But what's every time I talk to other performers, and I always ask like, what's your number one, like not necessarily fail story, but like the most epic, like where it was like just like a shit show of stuff happening or whatever. Like, what's your one story that like that at the time obviously would have like stung, but looking back on it years later is hilarious.
Yeah. That's where we came up with the good, the bad, and the ugly to get people to come out with. And like we've had some classics. One of mine, just before we'll shame ourselves before we ask Keith to shame yourself. I had a guy, I told a story before for people, who started stripping on stage when I asked him to come up and help, and then started getting down on the floor. Luckily, his friends like caught him before he took off a few layers at the top, and then was stopped and quickly whisked off stage. And that was it's hard to come back from that.
Yeah.
What was one of your ones that you have?
I mean, I got so many of like. There's been some where I shouldn't say not like all fail stories, but like there was. I did. This was like, this is ridiculous. So you know the perfume shop in the UK. Like so there was their like corporate like awards night or whatever in Wembley in London, and this is like post BGT, maybe like a few weeks after kind of thing. The perfume shop is having this like awards thing or whatever. And I at that point in my life, I had like no clue really what was going on. I was like, it's all happening so quick. And I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this like corporate awards show thing tonight. Great. So we get there and the woman comes up and she's like, do you know what this is? I was like, corporate awards night, like gonna be great. And she's like, no, like the audience, do you know anything about the audience? And I was like, well, not really, why fill me in? And she's like, it's 600 women who have been drinking since like probably 4 hours ago. And I was like, this is gonna be a money show. Like the show is gonna be a blast. I can't wait. So it's like tandem. The show is a blast. Like they're like liquored and it's so much fun. Like everyone's having a good time. We do the show. The woman is like the event planner. She's like, hey, if like they would love it if you stayed and hung out and had some drinks, open bar. And I was like, of course. Like, more. So we're hanging out and like everybody's having a riot. Like there was such a nice group of people. I got separated from like the show team and everybody's just like having drinks, hanging out, like such a fun night. So I get in the elevator to go find the rest of the team. And these three, like they were like older than my mother, right? Like, and it was all in good fun. They're joking. They're like, oh, Mr. Magic Man, like in the elevator, right? And I'm standing there, I'm like, ha 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 ha, like, and the door's open and I'm trying to like be polite. So I'm like looking back, trying to be like, nice to meet you guys. Like, I hope you have a nice night. Boom, I walk clean into this concrete pillar. Like, well, I'm like, thanks, ladies, but boom, I walk right into it. I cut my face open. It starts bleeding all over the lobby of this hotel after I'd just done this show. And these women were like, what is going on here? My face is gushing blood in the lobby. And I like didn't know what to do. So I just ran away. And I ran out into the outside of the hotel. And I called like the rest of the people. And I was like, you have to come. We need to go. This is terrible. And then took off. So I don't know what those ladies' memories of me are, but it's one of my most epic, like, oh God, what was I doing? Walk clean into a wall.
There's nothing worse than being like master of illusion on stage, and then you come off stage and you do a human normal thing and you just look like a dumbass.
Exactly, right? And then just bleeding everywhere. I was like, oh no. Oh, yeah.
We had Morgan Stripper on last night, and he said pretty much something similar. He was on stage, thousands of people there watching him in an arena, and just as he turned around, he slipped and just hit the ground, hit the deck. And he was like, just wanted the ground to open up and swallow him at that moment, because there's no, you can't, there's no return from that.
I know. I saw, and I was on next. I won't say his name because he's a super nice guy. And like, my heart sank for him, but he was doing his act, and it was this manip act, and audience is loving it. Like, he is killing, and he's going. I can't remember what he's doing, but he's taking his applause at the end, right? And he finishes his act. The audience is going. I think they were probably about to stand up. Like, it was going really well. And he was like walking forward, like, and he walked clean off the edge of the stage. And it was one of those old theaters where the orchestra pit is there. So it was 12 feet. And like, he couldn't just hop back up onto the stage. He had to climb out of the orchestra pit and go back up the steps onto the stage. And I was just like, oh no. I felt so bad for him, like so bad. But I mean,
I would have just stayed down there. Just been like, funny.
Yeah. But I mean,
play it off as a vanish or something. But like, he just disappeared. Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the other things that happened to me that I think is like, it still haunts my nightmares, was I got the nest of wallets trick, and I was like, oh, so excited for him. I practiced it over and over again, went out and borrowed a ring, and someone gave me an engagement ring with quite a large stone, and I was like, okay. So I put it in, and trick went in, ring vanished, great, open the nest of the wallets, go to open the first wallet, the ring flies across under the table that they were sitting at, and I had to get down on my knees and crawl underneath the table to retrieve the ring and be like, ta-da, there you go. And like, that was like my second trick of like, I had to be there for 10 minutes, and they just had no interest for the rest.
Then you just die a slow death after that, right? And you have to keep going, and it's just like, that's the one though that I like learned, or not learned, but like that, and it's still, you have to tell yourself, but like, especially when you're doing like a full show, that like, if something doesn't go perfectly, I mean, chances are they don't really know what's going on, but it's super important for like the performer not to get hung up on something when you have another 40 minutes to go, you know? because that could derail your whole thing. I remember like being young, like when I was a kid, and like something would happen early on, and then I would just be out of it for the rest of it. I'd be like mad, and then after the show, I'd be like, oh, I didn't focus on the rest of the show because I was, so. Yeah,
that's true. A horror story for me, I'll give you a quick one, was I like I was saying, an escape artist, so I was doing a straitjacket escape, and my thumb got caught in one of the belt loops as I was coming around, and my thumb popped out, and it was dislocated. Yeah, it was dislocated. I didn't know it was dislocated at the time, but it was, and it was flapping around inside the jacket, so I could feel it, and I was like, oh, that's not good. So I kept escaping and getting out of it or whatever. It was in a shopping center for like a charity event. Yeah, and I got out of it or whatever. And then once I was out, everyone was like, oh my God, it's amazing. And what do people want to do when you've just succeeded? They want to shake your hand. Yeah. So I had to shake everyone's hand with a dislocated thumb. And like this kind of two-handed shaking kind of stuff. And then I literally turned around and I was in bits. And the promoter was like, are you okay? And I was like, no, it's really, really, really sore. And this random woman, and I still don't know who she was, she just came over with her kid. The kid looked terrified when he was looking at my hand because my thumb was like this. She just went to like a pharmaceutical or a chemist or whatever it was, and she just grabbed like the break freeze bag that you just break and it just cools automatically. She just handed me that, and I just took it and like ran into like a kind of a side fire escape kind of a thing, and it had blown up. It was crazy.
Did you pop it back in, or did you have to go to the hospital?
I had to go to the hospital. They pushed it back in, and then I had a few weeks of physiotherapy on it and stuff like that. Yeah. It's still sore. It still pops and all sorts of stuff.
Here, I have to. I'll find it on my phone. Sorry, I'm not being rude. I have this photo that this is an injury from. So the thing I did on BGT, the Jaws.
Yeah.
This is disgusting. So the very first time I ever performed it, I was like trying to be a hero and like take it up like way high, take it up as high as it goes. And then I'm like, well, we're not gonna put a mat down there. Then they know I'm gonna fall, and so we won't do that. So it was like very first time I ever performed it for the public, like. Took it way up in the air and fell right down to the stage, and then this is my ass after it.
Oh, Jesus,
bruise.
So you lowered it down after that.
But and we had like every mat precaution. But like I went to the doctor after that, and because it was my whole leg was completely black, and I was like, got a pretty bad bruise, doctor, and he's like, show me. So I show him. The doctor literally went, oh my God, that's so bad. And I was like, what the fuck? You can't say that. What do you mean? Is that what you want to hear from the doctor?
No, the doctor should be like, that'll be fine in a week or two. That's what the doctor say.
But, I just had a similar experience like that with me and my wife went to Italy, and we got to the hotel early and said, you know what, we can't check in, let's go have some drinks. And we found a place that there was all the tables were full except for one in a bit long grass. So I was like, yeah, we'll sit there because it's free. And then the next day we woke up and we had the most mosquito bites I think you could possibly have from the knee down, like huge. And then like mine cleared up, my wife's got infected and stuff. But we'd go into pharmacies in Italy, not speaking any Italian, and they'd kind of like shove us off. And then they'd look at our legs and be like, oh my God. And so just start handing us stuff.
Yeah.
And then my wife went to the doctor when we got back, and he gave her like all the medication in the world, and she was like, "Will this clear it up?" And he was like, "Hopefully." Like, and again, his reaction when he saw her leg was like, "Oh, Jesus."
How long of your vacation did you have? When
we were only there for a week, so it wasn't too bad. But it was.
That was right at the beginning.
Yeah, it was the first day.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, it was the worst. It was just like the photos are like a horror show.
Yeah.
It was it is when medical professionals react like the way you do. You're like, oh shit, this is serious.
Yeah, you know, it's bad.
Parts of it. Sometimes, you know, if you're gonna throw, you know, not just like illusions, but actually like danger, you know, escapes and things like that into your act, you know, an injury and stuff, it's gonna have to happen. It just has to happen.
And that's the thing too. And the thing that always makes me feel really bad as well is like when you are using assistants, and it's like I mean, not that it's like aggressive, but you are getting in tiny spaces, and like so they're, you know, they'll have a little bruise or whatever. And it's not like it's just like they usually turn up like afterwards, and then they come into rehearsal the next day and like, oh my God, I didn't even realize I had all these bruises. And it's like, yeah, I know, sorry, like these boxes and all this stuff that you're getting it out of. It's like it's not graceful when you see the inside of it, you know?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
How do you find assistants? Is that difficult task. What do you advertise for?
I think because now we've sort of gone down the path of like they don't necessarily have to do much magic wise, like or if they do, the trick doesn't hinge on them. It's like might be a little something, but it's like I've tried to get past the stuff where it's like, hey, girl comes out, she gets in this box, and we whatever with this box, and hey, she's gone, and then we close it back up, and hey, she's back. It's like, you know what I mean? Doesn't really do it for me anymore.
Yeah.
So going from like a horror, Darcy, to like a really like big highlight of your career, other than like Britain's Got Talent or something, maybe something more kind of personal or just a kind of it might even be a small thing, but for you it was huge.
Yeah. So after BGT, I got asked to do, and it was cool because it was like a strictly bucket list thing, and we had to like sign stuff that it was like you can't use this for any sort of promotion. But it was the Queen's 90th birthday at Windsor Castle. Wow. And so it was like the guy was like, "This pays nothing, but we're inviting you to do it, and you can't talk about it." But I was like, "Well, fuck yeah, I'm gonna do that, obviously." Like, and it was crazy because it was literally like it was like Windsor Castle, I guess, where they live, and it was like in their dining room. It was like 80 people, direct members of the royal family. Like it was like they were having their dinner. You know what I mean? This is nuts. So strictly just for that's a forever story that I'll tell my grandkids. You know?
Yeah. That's awesome because there's stories of like Houdini and Thurston and other guys doing stuff like that. You know, like dignitary stuff. It's amazing. I did one once for the president of Kazakhstan.
I did too.
Did you?
Did you do it at that? Well, so I did it. It was a garden party for him and like 5 of his delegate buddies, and the military was there, and they were in the sewers. And anytime you go into another room, they searched you. I mean, the guy, he's been president for like 50 years there, hasn't he?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, same guy then, for sure.
Yeah. It was his son. It was his son's girlfriend's 21st, and it was in Hyde Park. It was in that hotel, the Mandarin Hotel.
In London.
Yeah, in London.
I went to Kazakhstan to do it.
Oh, cool. They didn't fly me. They flew me to London, so that wasn't too bad. But but it was a crazy event, and like that, the security was just nuts. But the same thing, you sign this waiver, you can't really talk about what really happened. It's nuts.
I have a funny story about the show in Kazakhstan. So it was very last minute, and like so we were like, yeah, we'll do it. So I was sending the dove cage where the doves disappear, a girl appears, and it was like last minute. They were like, if you want to do this gig, you have to get on a flight like tomorrow morning. Your stuff's gonna go down. Whatever. Like, hey, great. So we make it happen. We're basically there waiting for the gear to arrive. So the gear finally gets there. The military goes through all of it, right? And I was like, this is my box of magic tricks. Like, right? And they had this singer on before who was supposed to do 3 songs, and we had a translator, right? Because nobody spoke English. So the singer was supposed to do 3 songs, and the guy says when he's like, I'll tap you, I'll let you know when it's his last song. The girl can get ready, you can get ready. That's like your 5-minute mark, and then you'll be on after that song. So do what you need to do with the birds, get the girl set. We're like, great. So we get the girl set. Stagehand pushes it out, and we had this all worked out before. Singer's going to finish his last song. There's going to be a cage behind you there. Don't worry, just exit. That's for the next one. Just cool. So guy finishes his song. The president and his friends are loving this guy. So the guy's like, fuck it, I'll just do another 30 minutes. And the poor girl is set on stage, and it's like, we can't go out and get it off because we don't know when he's going to stop. Like, so we're all just starting like, oh my God, what's happening? Like, we felt so bad. Like, we laughed about it later, but but it was brutal. But yeah.
When we had David will tell the story better because I know he was really into it. But Joel Myers was on talking about a routine that they did. Dave, do you want to tell him about that?
Well, they were doing the whole show, and there was a guy who had a tarantula in his mouth. I think this was on like America's Got Talent or something, and they had to get Mel B to touch a snake, and she ran away. so they wouldn't come back. So your man was meant to have this tarantula in his mouth for like 5 minutes, and he ended up on stage for half an hour with a tarantula in his mouth, waiting to be able to reset the shot.
They were worried at the time apparently, because even the handler was like, okay, it's normally like kind of relaxed for about 5 minutes in your mouth, but any after that, I've had it in, the handler was like, I did it once for about 10 minutes, but it started getting agitated, and then they were like 30 minutes in, the guy used to stand there on stage with a tarantula in his mouth. I think it was meant to be a reveal or something. I think it was meant to be like a name what you're scared of kind of a thing.
Yeah.
David Blaine, obviously you just regurgitate it and spit it up later.
Right.
But the guy just stood there on stage with it in his mouth.
That's crazy.
The stuff we do for magic tricks.
Well, exactly, right? I remember it's only magicians that watch this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So thread, like the thread, I think. I remember trying to learn, because I would always do bead from eye or whatever, and I remember trying to like learn that, and I could never get it to properly come out like it looked like whatever. I remember trying to do it, and the next morning I woke up and my eye was just like crusted closed, and I was like, oh god, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, forget that. I'm just jamming stuff in my eyeballs for people's acceptance.
I tried to learn blockhead, and I just can't do it without sneezing. Like the second I can do the whole trick, and then the second the nail comes out, I just sneeze immediately. And I had to get like one of the COVID tests recently, and again, the second they did that, it was basically blockhead. I was just like, and sneezing starts immediately. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I guess guys are gonna have to cut blockhead out of their act now. Hey, that's just how you test COVID.
Everyone's got the method. Everyone knows the method now, so it's done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Did you ever have that Swami mantra book?
No,
I don't think so.
It's insane. It's this old like sideshow book, and in it there's this like photos of this guy, this old sideshow. I can't remember. My friend of mine has it, but he's teaching like the routine where you basically looks like you take a finish nail and you put it in one eye and it comes out the other eye. And he's showing the photos of how to like set this thing, and it's just like, good God, man, who is ever gonna like? Oh,
that's one that I just literally saw it on the shelf there. There's that one.
Oh yeah.
There's loads of crazy stuff in that. It's just like, whatever it might be, and then you look for the method, and like there is no method. You just eat the thing, or you just
exactly.
There's no method to any of that stuff. It's just like, so you just put glass in your eye, and what's the method? You just do that, and that's life.
Yeah, it's nuts. Like whoever that guy was who would stab himself with the fencing swords, the rapier.
Yeah.
That guy just like was like, ugh. And then he eventually died. I just found out that he died because he did a sword swallowing thing and he couldn't get it out, and then he went to bed. And he woke up and it punctured it. It was like, dude, you can't go to. I don't know if that's right, but I was like, you can't go to bed if you have a sword.
A bit too relaxed at that stage.
Oh, that's fucking nuts. But man, I'm really tired. I'm just gonna have a nap. I'm sure I'll get it out tomorrow.
Exactly.
Oh, that's crazy. No, I think some of those things, and it's one of those things as well that you don't really want to. I think you have to be a certain point in your career that you're going to try that riskier stuff, and I think it comes out of like content. You need more content for a new, and you start to dabble in different things, and like the last thing you'd want is like younger performers to try that stuff straight away, because you need to have some understanding or have people around you to even consider something like that.
Yeah. There's this guy, I can't remember what his name is, but there's video of him at a convention in Vegas, and he's obviously like I think he's like he's not you can tell he's not like a magician from the magic community, but he's a guy like I guess a sideshow person who had learned this thing somehow, or someone taught it to him, and it's the thing where it looks like he takes his finger and basically just jams it all the way into his eye socket. Yeah, and he's doing it, and you're just like, oh my god, what is this guy? Like, this is nuts. But I mean, someone obviously must have shown him back, like some sideshow guy, how to do it, because like, but it's crazy.
Yeah. I just think just learn a classic palm and you get
it. And get on with it. Yeah. I know. There is so much of that though, and when you do dig into the older books, there really is no methods. It is just and just do it. Hope for the best.
It's sometimes it's good when there's no method, like a bed of nails, where there's no method because it's actually not. It's more. It looks bad, but it's not that bad. While there's other ones where there's no method because it's just like, just do it. Like, take the pain. Just stab yourself. It'll be fine.
Yeah, you got it.
We at Deceive Reality do not condone any people stabbing themselves with swords.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, even though Darcy said, put your finger in your eye, don't put your finger in your fucking eye.
Have you with anybody like try and do things like you've got the Claw of Death illusion where you see people doing tricks like that with the danger who you don't think are ready for it, that like worry that something will go wrong?
I think the biggest thing about those things that like, because when it's like an effect you could technically buy, like when you can like Jaws, you can buy it. It's like it's what someone else does with it. You know what I mean? So if it's like it's just like, so I had his name was Arturo Brichetti. He's a quick change artist who I'd worked with a bunch while I was doing the Jaws in his show, and he gave me the idea to have this video behind with my life sort of flashing before my eye, whatever. And that's what really made the routine like something more than just, oh, here's a guy hanging from a contraption.
That's what it really adds to it. Because I saw that in Britain's Got Talent. It was like, that's so good.
And then so people started taking that part of it. And I was like, that's what really was kind of like, oh, no, like, no, that's my addition to this. Like, don't take that. You know what I mean? But, it's hard. Like, what can you do, right?
It's such a poignant moment because it's like when Houdini used to put up the time or ask people to hold their breath for a certain amount of time or whatever. It brings it back to humanity again. You know, you're not just a guy doing a trick. This is your whole life, and you're putting it at risk now for their entertainment. Appreciated, kind of a thing.
Totally. And that video, like there was so many like layers to that, or things that I felt like it did within that routine. Because it's like, I mean, I feel like a lot of the times if I see a guy who hasn't necessarily laid the groundwork to sort of win over the audience and is trying to win over the audience by doing something dangerous, you're not really on his side. Like in theory, like if someone's doing something dangerous, it should be at a point in the show where the audience loves you and they're rooting for you. They're like, oh my God, I hope, please, like don't fail. Yeah. If someone just comes out and busts out something dangerous, part of the audience is like, well, I wonder what would happen if this goes wrong. You know? So like,
that's what we talked about. Jonathan Goodwin brought that up, where he was like, people want to see it go wrong. That's where he does more stuff now, where he's on fire already and tries to like put himself out rather than like, because people like be curious to see what it is like on fire. But definitely like with the Britain's Got Talent and stuff. By the time you're in the finale doing that, people knew you and did care about you. That they weren't like if you did that in your audition, a lot of people would be like, cool, actually, if that I want to do what those clothes could do.
And it's funny you say that, because after the Bird Act, they were like, hey, what are you going to do in the next round? And I was like, I'll do the Dakota chair. And the plan was, I was like, if this goes all well, here's my sequence of routines. I'll do the Doves, Dakota chair, Jaws. And then the Doves went really well, and then they were like, we think you should do the Jaws next, because not guaranteed, they were like, for sure that they'll vote you through the finals. And I was like, yeah, man, how are you going to follow that up? Like, you're not going to rip your life midway through your own show and then be like, all right, for my next trick, like, you know? So I was like, no, I think I have to risk it with this and then close with the life-threatening thing. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like a plot twist in a movie too. If you're watching a movie, even like a horror movie, let's say, or a kind of a slasher movie or something, and you don't really have any connection to any of the characters yet, if something happens to him early on, you're just like, oh, we didn't even know who that was. Exactly. But if it's a little bit of a hook, you're going to be drawn in and care. And I suppose that's really what you're doing. And that's what every magician tries to do, is make the audience care about something that technically they shouldn't really care about.
Exactly. And make it look normal. You're care about it, and it's normal.
And not put your finger in your eye.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it is like about 20 minutes into a movie when there's a scene where they're like torturing the lead character and you're like, oh my God, is he going to die? And you're like, no, it's 20 minutes into the movie. So it's like, even though it's that really shows people then when they watch like a movie like Psycho, it's like, yup, kill off the lead character, carry on the movie.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to, though, I think that kind of showmanship and that kind of old-fashioned showmanship of like the Houdini and the Thurston and Keller and that kind of stuff, where you're really drawing people in with something that they can't do, but they can really appreciate. And you have a great quote from Simon Cowell saying that you're the ultimate showman. And I mean, that's exactly what you want, because it's not like you're the best magician I've ever seen. It seems more directed towards your actual performance.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was sort of, and I have like an internal kind of like, I guess, battle sometimes. Like if I'm doing a show where it's like, sometimes it's like, I shouldn't say it's an internal battle, but it's trying to figure out like what, like, are they like, what is it that they're reacting to sort of individually? Like, is it that we've created the right vibe and they're having fun? Is it that the magic is mind blowing, or do we just get that reaction because it's like you just pull out a bird and people like animals? So it's like, it's trying to figure. I always have that dialogue going on in my own head where it's like, what are they reacting to right now? Are they reacting to the person? Are they reacting to the magic? Or are they reacting to whatever? And it's like, and it's making sure that the show is even in all of those things. You know what I mean? Because like, if you go to a show and say, oh, love the guy, but I figured out how he did everything, or he flashed on whatever. It's like, you know, so it's making sure the whole thing is kind of cohesive, and it's like everything's as strong as everything else in it, but it all has its sort of place, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it has had ups and downs and peaks, and comedians think it that way too. I'm friends with a lot of comedians and work that circuit a bit in Ireland, and like it's like more thing. Are they laughing at you, or are they laughing with you? And you need to know the difference.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing too. And you know, that's why I find, you know, a lot of people, well, especially with what's happening in the world and everything. But you know, you can buy a trick and you can do it on Instagram, and people are like, "Oh my god, that's crazy," but that's not necessarily the full scope of what can be done, like with our craft. You know what I mean? So. And I think it's when you put the thought and the effort and the nuance into the whole thing, you know, it becomes this like polished thing that like you can't necessarily describe like how it got to where it got, but you've worked it, you know what I mean? And you understand the place of everything within the routine, which all facilitates the trick. So it's kind of like, there's I don't know, I'm sure you guys probably the same way. You come up with something, you do something, and it crushes one night, or maybe one night it's a little bit half response. You literally sit there and dissect like, why was it like that one night? And that, like, we get so close to our material, it's like, you know, we could explain it from a perspective that a normal person would be like, what? You think about it this much? Like, you know?
I think Justin Willman's video is great about that, when he's like, the girlfriend's trying to break up with him, and he's showing her a trick where he produces the coin. He's like, I got this flash paper delivered here and printed with the company's logo the day before. You're like, yeah, that's kind of like how our minds work.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the lens you go to sometimes. I mean, it is funny, though, the way people don't really realize the amount that goes into something that seems either like an impromptu quick piece of magic or something else. And the fact that we really dive into, you know, how detailed it can really be is kind of crazy. Like, if you actually think about the way we plan stuff, it is pretty nuts.
Exactly, and I think it was Teller who had a quote or something where it was just like, magic is really just something that one guy's decided to think about way more than anybody else.
Exactly.
Like,
we care more than they do.
Like you think about like a bit or a trick over until you just have all these ideas and you somehow turn it into a real thing, and it's literally because you just sat there and thought about it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with as you're saying, with the video behind you during the Jaws of Death routine, that like that does take it. Anybody can go do that trick, but it was having the idea to have that video behind, because that also increases the people's emotional connection and that to you, so that it takes it a level above. And I think there's other tricks like that people do that, like, sure, anybody can do an equivocate or a magician's choice. Anybody can do a double lift, but it's what you actually do with that to make it that people care is what matters.
Exactly. And I feel like I like for a long time too, like when I was like trying to, you know, make a run at it or work or say, it's like you have to. I feel like you have to almost like become a certain age or level of maturity before you actually even really have something to say. You know what I mean? I remember early on, I'd be like, oh, no, I want this to be more than just this trick. But it's like, well, I don't know anything. I'm like 19. Like, what do I have to say? Nothing, really. So you sort of find your voice, I feel like, the more you do it. And as sort of, you experience.
I think if you go to a magic convention and you watch all the magicians, and you go from like the teenage guy to the old guy, you've been them all. You've been them all. At some point, you've been the guy covered with cards on his t-shirts and whatever else. I know I want a hat, but that's not the point. And
I had the card tie. I had that when I was like.
You jump all up along all those rankings, and then someday we'll all be old dudes with like goatees and for their hats and everything else.
We'll be the ones telling the stories of like in our day.
There's this thing called TikTok where you did tricks for 5 seconds and you got appreciation for it.
Yeah, exactly.
The way fashion and stuff changes, like the old people are like, "Oh, why are you wearing skinny, ripped jeans? You should be wearing a tuxedo." And then when it could have all have changed. Now we'll be the old guys being like, "Why are you wearing jeans that aren't ripped? Those are too baggy."
Yeah.
How come you don't have any tattoos? Come on, you're not a magician without tattoos. You can't have tattoos on your arms.
That's probably something as well with Britain's Got Talent. That mean that your dress wasn't your traditional kind of look for a dub act, and I think that would have taken the kind of British audience by kind of shock, a little bit of shock value.
Yeah, and that was sort of like and like looking back on it too, even now, it's like that sort of kind of, I like to think of that as like my sort of like mantra now, where it's like just put your spin on old classics, you know what I mean? And it sort of was like a more peaceful way, I think, for me to approach like creating stuff, instead of being like, oh, I have to come up with the next like whatever. And it's like, no, actually the thing that was the most successful for me was a classic of magic that I just put my own sort of touch on. So it's like that sort of like brings me peace of mind when like sometimes you get hired to do something and there's a time limit on it and it's like, oh, the show's in 2 weeks and I have to create a routine or whatever. And then when you put like a end date on creativity, it obviously never ends up being as good as it could if you just had free reign to develop it.
Yeah.
So I always just sort of try to look at it as like, okay, well, let's go through the old books and just take inspiration from there, because it's a starting point, instead of just being like overwhelmed with, I have to do a routine about whatever. It's you can go through the old book and rejuvenate those.
Yeah, I think we Michael and Mara said that as well, that if you actually have something that's a skill-based thing or something that you have in your life, that if you like music or if you like whatever, and if you incorporate a bit of who you really are into your magic is always going to be way more stronger because it's really who you are. So, if you have a certain look that is your day-to-day look, and if it is torn jeans and a leather jacket, or if it is that a certain thing you wear, if you disjoint that and take that out of your act, well, then it's not really who you are.
Yeah, and that's the thing I think an audience can subconsciously, they're so aware of without knowing, is authenticity. It's like, that's why it's like, if you're watching a bad actor, you just can feel it. And if you're watching someone like fake their way through something, you can tell, even though you might not be able to explain what it is. Like, it's a feeling, And I've always
the uncanny valley where they do like the CGI faces and stuff still in movies, where you're like, that looks like a person, but there's something wrong. They're moving weirdly or something. We can tell it, like, just in your head right away.
You have to give the audience more credit too. They really can see that kind of stuff. They really can. I think a lot of like magicians think, oh, they won't figure out how they do it. But I mean, 9 times out of 10, if you went and you asked them, they'd probably come up with a better method or a different concept for you. Or like you said, somebody that isn't a magician, the artist you were talking about, he was talking about putting a personal touch into it because he wasn't thinking of it like a magician. A magician would be like, maybe it needs more fire. Maybe
exactly.
Maybe it should blow up at the end. So we think differently. So it's nice to have that kind of people around you that will be kind of honest with you.
Yeah, for sure, and I think that's an important part too. Is like, having like friends with, like, I always feel like it's good to have sort of one foot in the community and one foot like outside of the community in terms of like your circle of friends, because your friends that aren't magicians keep you grounded to real life, and then like the way magicians think, it's like it's easy to get like go on like a rampage of like you come up with an idea, and if you're around other magicians, like, oh yeah, I do this, and then it's like it sounds like a great idea in a room of magicians, but it's like it would, you know what I mean? You need real people's opinions as well outside of magicians.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be the audience that you're going to be showing it to. You're going to be showing it to real people. Like, I never had a massive interest in performing. You go to do a convention and you get asked because you're there or whatever. You're going to ask to be part of the billing or whatever, and you're like, yeah, 100%. But they're not going to enjoy it, and you're not going to enjoy it as much as if you were doing it for a paying audience, because it's a complete. It's not that they're looking to tear it apart, but they're going, well, I would have done it this way. But you're kind of like, well,
Yeah. I haven't gone to a convention in forever, specifically for that. I just wish it was more, I mean, I haven't gone in forever, but it was just, it's amazing when you have a good camaraderie with a group of magicians, but then it just also sucks when it's like magicians are just like, hey, we're not in competition with each other. Like, we're in this together. You know what I mean? Like, I've had bad experiences at conventions where I was just like, why I'm not you know what I mean? It's like, I'm here to enjoy the art and the craft and be around other people who love it, not to be like, ugh, I would have done this, and you should have worn this.
Yeah, I think real working professionals don't really have that, and I think it's the semi-professional and amateurs that have that real hatred of each other or whatever.
Exactly.
We've seen it on every level, over the years, and everyone has. But I think any professionals that we've talked to, and ourselves, when you're kind of outside of that, you just kind of can dip in and dip out, and it's a nice place to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think it's the thing we talk about as well as the people who think about it more. Because you see, like, even when David Blaine first blew up, everyone was like, he's doing the same tricks I
can do all of that. Yeah.
I'm doing. How come he's on TV and I'm not on TV? People don't realize all the little nuances that he has that you don't have and stuff like that because he is thinking about it more. So even though it's the same trick to the spectator, it's way more impactful. And that's like you're saying, you tweak the words and people don't care, and then you tweak them back and you're like, yeah, my reaction.
Thanks. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things too. If the audience already you've built a rapport with the audience and they care, like you said, it kind of after that, that the effect is going to work. It's a good solid piece of classic magic or whatever. They don't really mind. They're going to be more forgiving if they already like you and they already like the person.
And it's funny actually. So when I did Britain's Got Talent, and then everything. So and then after that, we did a UK tour. And in my head, I was like, this has to be the big, we need this, and we got to and just like going ballistic. And then I can't remember who, I was talking to Dynamo. Dynamo was like, man, like, honestly, like, if you've got them as fans, like, you just do whatever, like, they're your fans, they're there to see you, you don't have to throw, well, yeah, I mean, like, throw like $1 million at a show, or like, don't blow your budget, they're there to see you, you've got them already, just give them a fun kind of thing. And it was like, it took me a while to sort of realize that, like, I don't need to spend this much money on this. They don't like me because of that illusion. You know what I mean? It's the same for any magician. It's not because you have that thing. That's what makes it's what you put into it. It's you. It's your essence. That just facilitates you.
I think it's a good thing, like you were saying in your horror story, when they asked you to stay and hang out with them. I think that's the sort of thing that I've mentioned before as well, is that if after the show they want to hang out with you and talk about you, I'm like, success. If they want to hang out and be like, so there was this trick you did, and then I'm like, oh, so the trick is what you care about. I'm just the guy who does it.
Yeah. But it's crazy business for it, isn't it? It's like, it's weird that, like, I never thought that, the things that I like spend my time thinking about, like, I don't know, it's crazy. It's because you get so deep into like the everything involved in it, the psychology, the writing, the rehearsing, the performing, the business. Like, what seems like just magic tricks to people is like this realm of everything that's like so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's performers that really care though about the performance that they're going to puts in that that level of thinking, because the majority yourself is just like, I'll do a trick and that'll be that, or I do a few tricks at an event and that's it. But I think it's when you start digging deep, and I know from some of my own escapes and things, like I've taken challenges and I'm kind of tagged as Ireland's Houdini or whatever. So it's all that kind of thing. It's all like thinking way outside the box. You're like, why are we doing it this way? Can we not do it this way? And really kind of stretching what you can do and the limitations.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And I think the difference thing is you're not a magician, you're an artist. I think that's a huge, like musicians are artists. They can be an artist in that sense. If it's so much you and so much your own persona, you become an artist, not really just a performer or a magician anymore.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And I think it's like, people. Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's funny when people are like, oh, magic's an art form, but they're doing instant tricks. It's like, well, no, you gotta make it an art form. Like, you can't just do the trick and be like, that's art. It's like what you do with that. How do you make them feel?
Yeah, it's like cover band magic versus original magic.
Exactly,
and I think, like, as we talk about overthinking stuff as magicians, I think the perfect example of that is how many different variations there are on the double lift. It's like, how have we come up with like 20 different ways to turn over a card?
Exactly.
Crazy. So we're coming up, going through. Oh, there's 5 people watching. Hey, how you doing? So before we fully wrap up and go on, do you want to ask the question that we have for giving away the ticket again? The name of the book that people have to write down the author for.
Who wrote Technique and Understanding?
Who wrote Technique and Understanding? So if you write down the author of that book in the comments on Wednesday, we'll pick out someone who got it right to win a free ticket to Darcy's show that's happening. And what date is the show?
December 19th. So we're doing a UK stream and a North American stream on the same day. So it's 2 different ones, but should be good. Illusion show.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And make sure as well to go over to darcyoake.com/virtual to get tickets as well if you want to go see the show. I'm sure it'll be a great show. And follow Darcy on all the social medias. Do you have anything else you want to promote? Well, we have people.
That's about everything. This is fun. This is a good podcast. It's very enjoyable. It's good chat. Just talking magic. It's nice. Usually, you probably hopped into non-magic related podcasts, and it ends up being like an hour and a half interview that would normally how'd you get started? Do you have a favorite trick? Oh, it's just like, oh god, I wish this was an hour chat with actual magicians, you know?
Yeah. You can actually go into stuff rather than just being like, yeah, magic's fun. Yeah.
If you're getting interviewed by a journalist that might have done a bit of magic and I want them to be like, well, there was a trick I used to do years ago with this like plastic thumb thing, and you're like, oh, I never used one. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool, man. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Oh, hey, thanks for having me. Let's stay in touch. And it's been a blast. Thank you guys.
Thanks, man.
Thanks so much. And again, if you want to follow Darcy Oake on social media, Darcy Oake everywhere. I'm at David Peace Magic and just David Peace. It's Steve Spade. Steve Spade Magic.
Steve Spade Magic, Steve Spade online all over. And Arden Houdini if you're into escapes. And next week, we have Daniel Garcia. So that's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, definitely. That should be another interesting podcast. And we'll have 2 more then before Christmas after Daniel Garcia. So right the way through till the end. So again, thanks everyone for watching. Yeah. busy time.
Nice.
Good luck with the show, man. Thanks again.
Thank you guys.